Hello and welcome back, Minute Readers. We are in the final stretch of Once Upon a Fall. So where we are now is they finally made it home out to sunny California from haunted Vermont. And just as things were supposed to mellow back out and go back to their happy, easy living, with one major exception, Shelley, the main character, is now an item with her best friend, Blake. So this happy new start is supposed to be peaceful. They're finally away from all the haunting, craziness, and murder that happened in Vermont. However, all of a sudden, Blake's begun acting very strange, installing security systems, telling her to lock doors, and having secret conversations with his brother Ben. Shelley has been seeing weird things that she isn't for sure if it's actually something, but she's been seeing shadows and whatnot. And then her ex showed up outside of her house at night, just kind of watching, and then disappeared out of nowhere, and then shows up at her front door the next day. She's happy to see him and is thankful that she's had this chance to actually get closure, because in the past when they were together, he left kind of without saying a word. However, he comes back, apologizes, and lets her be known the reason that he left originally was because he was falling in love with her, and there were problems back home with his brother that he had to go help with. But also at the same time, that's when Blake had gotten back from traveling and studying abroad. And since he was studying abroad, he hadn't seen them together, and when Blake got back, he realized, oh my god, she's in love with him and he's in love with her. There's no place for me here. However, instead of talking to her about it, he just bolted. And this was years ago. And so he came back and, they kind of talked about that, but there's still something going on that Blake hasn't told her about. So where we thought this was going to be a wrap-up and done deal, it's not so much. We still got a chunk to go. Are you guys ready? So without further ado, we're going to jump right back in. We're starting on chapter 25. Here we go. Just then, there was a knock at the door, and Ben walked in. "Hey," he said, giving me a strange look. "What's going on?" "I might be crazy, but I could have sworn I just saw..." Blake cut him off. "Nick?" "No, that was actually Shelley's ex. Dylan," they said simultaneously. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more awkward, I cleared my throat. "Yes, it was Dylan." "I didn't know he was coming into town." "I guess I can understand why he didn't tell me. How did he seem?" Ben asked. I didn't realize you were still in touch with him," I questioned back accusingly. "Oh, well, we thought it was best not to mention it to you, initially, to make things easier for both of you. I guess, as time progressed, I just never thought of bringing it up again after that. Sorry." "Wait, you know that guy?" Blake questioned. "I know him. He spent just as much time with him as I did that summer. They definitely had a bromance going on." Ben tried not to, but he couldn't help the chuckle that slipped out. "Okay, but you do realize the uncanny resemblance that he has to Nick, right?" "Yeah, I guess they did both kind of look like their mom in certain angles." Blake and I exchanged confused looks. "Their mom?" I questioned, barely able to get the words out. "Oh, yeah, I don't know why I assumed you knew. They were half-brothers. They had different dads. Remember that one snowboarding trip I went on that winter, after you two broke up? I had gone and stayed with them for 3 weeks. I met both Nick and their mom on that trip. Nick had been in some trouble and had just been released, so Dylan was adamant about making sure we kept him with us to keep him out of any more trouble. We all kept in touch over the years. Around the time their mother died, Dylan and Nick had a huge falling out, and ultimately stopped seeing one another. Neither one of them would talk about it. Whenever Nick would call, he seemed like he was doing good. And it was always cool chatting with him, so when he called to let me know that he was coming out to take a few college classes, I agreed to hang out, and yeah, the rest you know," Ben explained. I was in complete and utter disbelief. The only other guy, aside from Blake, that would forever have a piece of my heart was brothers with a murderous sociopath? And not just any sociopath, but one whose life I had taken with my own 2 hands. Does he know what I did? I don't know. I haven't been able to get a hold of him since it happened. If he did, how could he have stood there so coolly and being so kind? I could be wrong, but I don't think they've been in each other's good graces for quite some time. I'm telling you, there was something about their mother's death that tore them apart. Yeah, but still, they were brothers. Imagine how you would feel if someone hurt Blake. Yeah, but it was you. He knows you just as well as everyone else. and he knows that you don't have a single mean bone in your body. He'd understand that it was in self-defense. So either he didn't know, or he did and he understood. I mean, come on. He loved you. Like, really loved you. Feelings like that for someone cause you to look at things differently. And they certainly don't just go away. He's right. Blake chimed in with a little grin. Yeah, I don't know. Let's not forget that he had no problem walking away and never looking back. I hardly call that love. That's where you're wrong. That's actually how you know just how much he did love you. He was looking at moving out here, indefinitely, just to be with you, when Blake got back. Once he saw you two together, he told me he knew you two were meant to be, and he was respectfully bowing out. All he wanted was for you to be happy, even if that meant sacrificing his own happiness. If that isn't true love, I don't know what is, Ben clarified. I never knew any of that, I exclaimed, feeling both shocked and a little saddened. Yeah, I had no idea either. Blake chimed in, seeming remorseful. We spent the remainder of the evening discussing everything that had transpired and sharing stories from the past. Finally, it got late, and Ben returned to his house next door, as Blake and I headed up to bed. The next morning, as Blake headed over to meet Ben, I headed into work to meet with the boss. I wanted to discuss what was lined up for me, and what exactly the clients were wanting for the upcoming project for next week. The boss and I had just been wrapping up the meeting when the new camera app that I had installed on my phone chimed with a notification. One of the motion detectors on one of the cameras had gone off. As I opened the app, I saw that it was the outside camera. The camera had been triggered by someone approaching the door. I was reviewing the recording, trying to determine who the ominous, shadowy figure may have been, when another notification came through, and had been triggered once again. The boss and I had just been wrapping up the meeting when the new notification app I had installed on my phone chimed with a notification. One of the motion detectors on one of the cameras had gone off. As I opened the app, I saw that it was the outside camera. The camera had been triggered by someone approaching the door. I was reviewing the recording, trying to determine who the ominous, shadowy figure may have been, when another notification came through. It had been triggered once again. This time, I was able to watch it live. This new person was taller and had more of a masculine build than the last. As I zoomed in, I was shocked to discover it was Dylan. Oh, why the heck was he back? What did he want? Wait, what was he doing? He left the porch and was headed around to the side of the house. At this point, I thanked the boss and headed back to my car, desperate to keep watching. As I sat there staring at the screen, Blake came into view as he approached the driveway. Oh crap, that's probably not going to go over well. With that, I hightailed it back to the house. I had to get there before any drama, or possibly something worse, could go down. I didn't want anything to happen to either of these guys. Chapter 26. As I pulled up to the house, things were eerily quiet. I pulled out my phone, dialing Blake, as I headed towards the front door. When he didn't answer, worry began to creep over me. Attempting to open the door, I was shocked to discover it was still locked. Had Blake not gone in? I immediately called Ben, who informed me that Blake had left a while ago to go check on things at my house. If that was the case, where the heck was he? Maybe he had gone in and decided to lock the door behind him, considering he had seen someone snooping around. The only question was, had he known it was Dylan? I unlocked the door and entered. Blake, are you here? Realizing that he could be upstairs and unable to hear me, I headed up, calling out once again. There was nothing but me and the resounding silence. I peered out the window to see if anyone was in the backyard, only to come up empty-handed yet again. I decided to text Blake. Maybe he just hadn't heard me call earlier. Hey, getting a little worried. Can you give me a call really quick? Close to 5 minutes went by, and I still hadn't gotten a response. Starting to grow truly worried, I called Ben again. I explained to him what I had seen on the security footage, and how I was now unable to find or get a hold of Blake. With that, he came straight over. Blake's car was still up front, so we knew he couldn't have gone far. Hey, have you checked your security camera footage since you've been home? Ben questioned. No, that's a great idea, I replied, feeling a bit foolish for not thinking of that myself. As we watched the footage from the outside camera, we saw the first figure come into view and approach the porch. Whoever it was had on a hat and a baggy sweatshirt, making it impossible to determine their identity. They then continued across the porch, disappearing from the camera's view. I switched over to the footage from the inside cameras to see if they had caught anything from the front windows. Sure enough, the person came into view. The shadow cast by their hat had darkened their face, making them completely unrecognizable. We watched speechlessly as the person appeared to peer in all the windows before glancing behind them. They seemed to have been startled by something as they turned around and then began running towards the side of the house. That must have been when Dylan showed up, I muttered as we switched back to the outside footage. The timing lined up to the exact moment Dylan had arrived. As he approached the porch, there was a clear shot of his face. We couldn't make out what he had yelled, but the look plastered on his face was one that appeared to be a mixture of anger and fear. As he proceeded to head towards the side of the house, Blake came into view behind him. Blake yelled something, jogging towards him, but Dylan proceeded to go around the bend to the side of the house. Blake followed. And that was it. All three of them had disappeared from the range of the cameras. I'm gonna go check out back, Ben informed me. No, wait. I think it's better if we stick together. At this point, we have no idea what's going on, or who is where. Let me go grab the .22, and we can go out together. Ben nodded and followed me to the bottom of the stairs. As I continued up them, grabbing the gun and tucking it in the back of my pants, I quickly headed back down. Ben cautiously looked up through the sliding glass door before deeming it safe. Upon discovering that there wasn't a soul in sight, the awful feeling in the pit of my stomach was becoming almost too much to bear, as worry threatened to consume me. I refused to let it. Okay, focus. What would Blake tell me to do right now? And then it hit me. Blake always made jokes about calling in reinforcements. That was exactly what we needed to do. Hey, where is Noah right now? I'm not sure. Either at the beach or the house. He was thinking about heading out when I left to come over here. Okay, I'm going to give him a call and see if he's heard anything, and if he'd be willing to help us look. Ben nodded, continuing to wander the yard in search of clues. And Noah picked up on the first string. I explained to him what was going on, and he came rushing over into the backyard even before we had a chance to hang up. There was no mistaking the worry written all over his face. I can't believe this. It can't be happening again, he said under his breath as he joined Ben in looking around. Chapter 27. Hey, I found something, Ben yelled out. Hurrying over, we discovered a fresh, muddy footprint in the puddle left from the morning sprinklers. It was located towards the back of the yard, just before the gate that was slightly ajar. Ben and I exchanged hesitant glances, knowing very well that miles of hiking trails butted up to this fence. A mile or so out, there was an old abandoned shed, and about another half-mile past that, a wooded area with 2 caves that were adjoined by man-made tunnels. It used to be a popular hangout for high school kids, a good 15 years ago or so, but since it had been closed off due to their unstable nature. Despite them being closed off, Blake, Ben, and I had still ventured into them often as teens. That was until Ben broke his leg in one of the tunnels, in a minor landslide. If I'm being honest, it was his and Blake's fault. They had been messing around and doing dumb stunts, the last of which knocked loose a large boulder, causing the landslide. Needless to say, our parents forbade us from going back in there, and we never did. Hey, how's the battery on your phone? Ben questioned. Mine's good, I replied. What? Noah questioned, looking perplexed. If they headed to where I think they did, we're going to be needing to use our phones as flashlights, Ben explained. Oh, I think mine should be good, Noah replied, sliding his phone back into his pocket. The first smile seemed to go quickly, and before we knew it, the old shed came into view. We decided to play it safe and check it out before proceeding to the caves. As we approached, something shiny on the door caught my eye. What the hell? I blurted out as my heart began to beat wildly in my chest. It was the bracelet. That damn bracelet. The one I had hoped to never see again. The very one Nick had given his victims. It's gonna be okay, Ben said, ushering me behind him, as Noah cautiously approached the door. It opened with a creak, as dust drifted down and cobwebs ripped. It was clear that no one had been inside for a very long time. Maybe she should go back and wait at the house, Noah warned. No, we can't protect her there. She stays with us, Ben rebutted. With that, we all proceeded to silently follow the winding dirt trail. It wasn't more than a few minutes later that tall, majestic trees and blankets of yellow and orange poppies came into view. Ben and I shared looks once again, knowing that we were almost there. Hey, what's that? I said, pointing to something small up ahead on the trail. Ben jogged ahead, picking it up. It was a brown and black leather bracelet with the letter D in the middle of it. Dylan, Ben and I blurted out at the same time. Who? Noah questioned, seeming lost once again. Your cousin, I started to say when Ben cut me off. Well, technically he's not. Dylan and Nick were half-brothers, through their mom, whereas Noah was Nick's cousin through his dad, so there's no actual true relation. Wait, what? You mean to tell me that Nick had a brother, and he's here? Noah appeared to be lost in thought for a moment before he spoke again. So then this guy has to be the one behind whatever's going on, right? Well, we don't actually know what's going on, and honestly, I don't believe Dylan would hurt a soul. That came out sounding more defensive than I intended it to, but I knew Dylan. Well, at least I thought I did. Noah shot me a confused look. He's her ex, Ben clarified. With that, Noah's brow shot up questioningly. It was years ago. However, he just showed back up the other day, seemingly out of nowhere. He claims to be in town for business, but I haven't been able to get a hold of him since everything went down with Nick, Ben explained. Just then my phone went off, causing us all to jump. Hello? Hi, this is Officer... the Bennington Police. I've been... to call... let you know... is missing. Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? I couldn't make out what he was trying to say before the call cut out. I think that was the police. Something about someone or something being missing? But service is close to non-existent out here, I said, noticing that they both were staring at me with intense looks. Maybe we should all go back to the house and think this through. Maybe come up with a plan and actually call the police? Noah suggested, looking uneasy. No, they won't do anything. Blake hasn't even been gone for half a day. By the time the cops would be willing to do anything, it could be too late. And Shelley? I know you don't want to believe it, but you need to consider the fact that Dylan may no longer be the guy that we both once knew. I mean, he was obviously at your house for a reason today, and someone had to put that bracelet on the shed. I'm just saying, keep your guard up. We still don't know who the third person is with them. That was the first person to my house, and could very well be the one behind the bracelet too, I argued. Yes, they could be. In fact, I hope they are. I'm just saying you need to keep your guard up, no matter how things may appear. I nodded. I may not have liked what he was saying, but he wasn't wrong. With that, we continued silently towards the entrance of the first cave. Chapter 28. Just before we entered the cave, my phone pinged with a new voicemail. This must be the one place in the dang trails that actually have service, I whispered. Go ahead, check it. Maybe it's Blake, Ben urged. I dialed my voicemail, putting it on speaker so we could all hear. Hi, this is Officer Davis with the Bennington Police Department. I just called, but I think we had a bad connection. I've taken over the case for Officer Phelps, as he's no longer with us. However, I'm working off his notes, and it appears that there is a notation here to give you a call regarding an incident that transpired 4 days ago. A Nicholas Ellington seems to have gone missing. Now, I'm not sure what the relevance is in relation to you, as I'm just getting familiar with the case. However, that was the last note that was made on the books, and it was marked as stat. Seeing as how 4 days have already gone by, I figured I'd start by giving you a call. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call back. Thank you, and have a good day. My hands were now trembling so badly, I had to tighten my grip in order to not drop the phone. Was it really possible that Nick could still be alive? Had I not killed him after all? Oh, God. What if he was back to finish what he started? Or worse yet, for revenge? If that was actually him in there, there would be no saying what he was planning, or what lengths he would go to. Shelley, it's decision time. I completely understand if you want to turn back. I actually think that might be a good option at this point. Noah can go with you too to make sure that you get back safely, Ben was saying when I cut him off. There's no way I'm leaving until I know Blake is okay. I'm staying. But Noah, we will understand if you want to go, I informed him. Part of me actually hoped he'd take the opportunity I was providing to get out of this before it was too late. There was no saying what we were about to walk into. However, an equal part of me hoped he would stick with us. We'd likely need the backup. I actually think I'll wait out here and keep a lookout, he replied, shocking us both. Not only was I disappointed that we would now be down a man, but suspicion coursed through me as I questioned his motives. Why would anyone in their right mind want to remain out here like a sitting duck? Well, unless he was part of what was going on and knew he had nothing to fear. God, I had no idea who I could trust, aside from Ben and Blake, of course. There was never any question there. Ben shot me a weary look before turning to Noah. Okay, keep your eyes open and be safe, man, Ben said as he proceeded to pull out his phone and turn on the light. Walking up to Noah, I gave him a quick hug. If you don't feel safe out here, it's seriously okay if you want to head back to the house. Hugging me back, he whispered in my ear, I'm not leaving until you guys have made it out safe. I gave a half smile before continuing over to Ben. Maybe Noah was on our side. It was getting harder and harder to tell. The only thing that I knew for sure was that I had to find Blake. The fear that I was currently feeling as I followed Ben into the cave was almost blinding. It was literally taking everything I had to stay strong. Very little light filtered in the deeper we got. I had never been more thankful for my phone than I was in that moment. Eventually, darkness and a pungent smell surrounded us, as Ben shined his light in various directions, attempting to figure out where to go. Just then, Ben put out his arm, stopping me dead in my tracks, as something echoed down one of the corridors. Immediately, we both hid our lights and listened intently. We froze in place, as it sounded as though footsteps were headed in our direction. Then, out of nowhere, they stopped and headed back in the opposite direction. We remained there, silent and still, until we were sure that whoever it had been wasn't coming back. Cautiously and quietly, we proceeded down the path that the footsteps had come from. As we continued on for a while longer in the vast darkness, it was starting to feel hopeless. Then, something a few feet away caught my eye, as the light from our phones passed by it. Shining my light back in that direction, I grabbed Ben's arm. As he turned to see what I was looking at, a smile flashed across his face. It was the old generator from when the high school kids used to come party out here. It had worked the last time we were here, and if I remembered correctly, it lit up part of the first cave, spanning all the way back into the man-made tunnels. Now, only if we could get it running. My scream came out as a faint, muffled, almost inaudible noise as a hand clamped down over my mouth. "Shh, it's okay, it's just me," Dylan whispered into my ear. Ben spun around, shining his light directly in Dylan's face. As he looked over at Ben, a bloodied area next to Dylan's eye was revealed. "Are you okay?" I questioned, overcome with concern. If I'm being honest, it looked pretty bad. His complete under eye was swollen and bruising, and blood streaked from right beside his eye down to his cheekbone. "Yeah, I'll be fine. It probably looks worse than it is. Right now, we just need to worry about getting that generator on so that we can see what the hell is going on. We have to get you out of here." "What? I'm not going anywhere until we find Blake," I argued. "No, that's what he wants. He's counting on you to come and try and rescue Blake. It's a setup. You need to get as far from here as possible." Ben had been silent up until this point. "Dylan, who has Blake?" "Nick, now come on. We need to get over to the generator." "Wait, that's not possible. Nick's—" Dylan cut me off. "No, he's not. He's alive and he's here. I got a call from an officer a few days ago that Nick had been badly injured and lost a lot of blood, but had been stitched up, given a blood transfusion, and was being watched by a guard in the ICU at the hospital. When I got there, I learned that he had spent the day in the ICU, and then had gone missing. No one seemed to know anything in regard to where he went and how. That's when I met his girlfriend, who was also in the ICU, but being transferred to a regular room as I was speaking to an officer. She told me everything he had done, including burying her alive. I came here to make sure he wasn't going after you, and if he was, to stop him. But I don't know if I could do that if you don't let me get you out of here." My jaw dropped. I was literally speechless. How could any of this be real? I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare. Ben hurried towards the generator, as I stood there still trying to comprehend everything that Dylan had just dumped on me. Why me? Why does he want me dead? I finally got up the courage to ask. "He's a sociopath, Shelley. He's had issues since he was young. Was even locked up on and off. We had thought that the treatment and medications had been working, until our mom, accidentally, fell down the stairs to the basement. They found his skin under her nails, but he claimed it happened as he tried to catch her from falling. Although everyone suspected that wasn't the case, there just wasn't enough evidence to put him away. Before her passing, they had gotten into this big argument. It was dumb. He was accusing her of always choosing everyone over him, which wasn't true. He always had issues with women. The less attention they gave him, the more aggressive his thoughts and eventually actions seemed to get. He seemed to carry this mindset that women owed him something and had to pay when they failed to give him what he wanted. As for our mom, she had been sick for a couple of days and hadn't made the meal he had been hoping for that evening. He freaked out and was shouting that he had had enough and was going to put it into it when I broke it up and you still couldn't manage to save her, could you?" A voice growled as Nick came running towards us. My breath caught and my heart felt like it was going to pound out of my chest. He resembled a rabid dog as he tackled Dylan to the ground. I thought about pulling out the gun, but with the way they were flipping and rolling, I knew it would be impossible to get a clear shot, and I wasn't willing to risk it. Afraid of getting pulled into the fight if I got too close, I did the only thing I could think of. I picked up a large rock and chucked it at Nick's head. It hit, and it hit hard. Yet he remained completely unfazed. His focus remained solely on Dylan. They struggled a minute longer before something clicked, and the flailing of limbs ceased. The shine of handcuffs on Dylan's wrists let me know we were screwed. Nick's headband light shined on my face as he looked at me with a demonic smirk. "Now follow me if you want either of them to live," Nick said, nodding back towards the way he had come from. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Ben starting to get up and follow us. However, it appeared Nick hadn't noticed him, and we needed to use that to our advantage. As I began to follow Nick, who was now shoving Dylan ahead of him, I looked back at Ben, waving my hand and nodding to the generator. I could only hope that Ben knew what I had been trying to convey and would stay to try to get the generator working. We needed that light in order to have a fair fight, and to find Blake. Chapter 29. Okay, so I had been wrong about needing the light to find Blake. Nick led us right to him. He too was cuffed. Nick shoved Dylan down on the ground on the other side of the rock pile that Blake was kneeling beside. Going to stand between them, he stared at me with a menacing look. "You're a bit of a pain in the ass. I've never not finished something that I've started, but you kind of screwed that up, now didn't you? Don't worry. I have the perfect way you can pay me back." Just then the generator kicked on and the light flooded the cave. "Ooh, kind of feels like we're on a game show, doesn't it?" I stared at him in shock as he began to hop around excitedly like a madman. "Now choose!" he barked out, clearly becoming agitated. He rushed towards me, grabbing my arm again, pulling me up to my feet as he looked over to Dylan. He was so preoccupied by what he was going to do next, he didn't notice me slip the gun from behind my back to Blake with my free hand. I pretended to resist, yet allowed him to drag me halfway to Dylan before stopping dead in my tracks. "Stop this. I won't do it. It's me you seem to want, so take me and do what you will. Just let them go. I won't resist." "No!" Blake and Dylan protested in unison. "Quiet, Tweedledee and Tweedledum," Nick said, seeming to study me. I yelped as he whipped out a knife, holding it to my throat. "You better not be playing games with me." Trailing the knife down my throat, he looked to Blake. "Look, even I get a turn with the girl you want, before you. Not that there'll be any chances left after." "Stay the hell away from her," Blake growled. I could see the gun hidden beside his leg as he pretended to fidget with his cuffs in an attempt to distract Nick. It seemed to be working. Just then, off in the distance, I saw a shadowy figure approaching, followed by a second and a third. Their arms were extended in front of them, and they were holding something. Guns. It was the police. I had no idea how they knew to come here, but I had never been so thankful. I still had to play this monster's game, though, as with but a flick of his wrist, he could have my throat slit faster than I could blink. "Unbutton your shirt," he demanded. I did as he asked and undid the top button. "Are you watching, lover boy?" he taunted Blake. "Okay, undo another," he said, pressing the knife more firmly against my throat. "The deal was I'd give you me in exchange for them. Let them go." Pressing the knife firmer yet, he leaned in close, so close that I could feel his hot breath on my cheek. "Who do you think you are to tell me what the deal was? But I suppose you're right. I'm not a monster after all." He walked over and uncuffed Dylan first, still dragging me with him. "Try anything besides walking straight out and she's dead," he said, waving the knife next to my face. I watched Dylan start to walk away, before Nick turned and dragged me with him towards Blake. Just as I started to turn my head, I saw Dylan duck behind a nearby boulder. Part of me wished he would have just gone when he had the chance, rather than lingering in the shadows waiting to do God knows what. I couldn't live with myself if anything happened to him on my account. As we approached Blake, a worried expression crossed his face. "What the hell is that?" Nick's voice boomed. Oh, shit. He saw the gun. Blake jumped to his feet, gun in hand, although he was still cuffed. "Let her go now," Blake demanded. "Or what?" Nick challenged back, nicking my neck with the knife. At the slightest sight of blood, Dylan came bounding out, pouncing on Nick. The blow sent me tumbling to my knees. I gasped as a sharp rock dug into me. A mixture of worry and rage flashed across Blake's face as he took aim and was readying to shoot. Just as he cocked the gun, the police swarmed in. "Hold your fire!" an officer yelled, running up and shoving his knee roughly into Nick's back. Blake remained standing with the gun pointed at Nick as the officer proceeded to cuff him. "Put the gun down," the officer said again. The look on Blake's face was one that I had never seen on him before. "Listen to them. Think it through. Think about what it would mean for us," I pleaded. I too wanted Nick out of our lives for good, but I knew what would happen if Blake shot once Nick was already detained. This would no longer be seen as a self-defense case, and Blake's life would be ruined. Nick would still win. "Don't listen to her. You want to shoot me? Do it. I dare you, Nick taunted. With that, the officer shoved Nick down harder. Blake, look at me, I begged, my voice breaking as I attempted to hold back tears. Turning to me, he posed a question that completely caught me off guard. What do you want me to do? Don't think about the consequences. Just tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it. I understood what he was offering, and what he was willing to sacrifice. But it wasn't a sacrifice that I was willing to accept. It's okay. Put the gun down. Sucking in a deep breath, he nodded and did as I asked. Just then the commotion of more officers approaching caught our attention. Are you sure you want to go through with this? The detective was yelling to Noah as he came stalking in. I had to do a double take. I recognize that detective. It was Officer Phelps, Noah's friend from Vermont. I sighed with relief. I had just assumed that when the officer said in the voicemail that he was no longer with us, that he had passed away. I was thankful that wasn't the case. Noah walked up and took the gun out of Blake's hands, while Detective Phelps removed Blake's cuffs. Blake ran to me, scooping me up in his arms. I could feel his shaky breaths as he held me tightly against him. I was startled when Detective Phelps yelled, "Everybody out!" As the officers began to file out, Ben nodded at Noah, before guiding us out as well. Glancing back past the detective, I noticed Nick, Noah, and Dylan were all that remained. Nick was now down on his knees, and Noah and Dylan were standing on each of his sides. Just as we made it around the bend, the haunting sound of Nick laughing like a maniac could be heard. Turning back to Detective Phelps, I began to question what was going on, when multiple loud bangs echoed throughout. There was no mistaking that sound. As one last bang rang out, I looked at Blake, wide-eyed. It's over. For good this time, he said reassuringly as he kissed my forehead. Pulling me in close, he continued to guide me towards the sunlight just outside of the cave. Chapter 30. I kept watching and waiting, expecting the police to show up at our door for questioning or statements over the next couple hours. However, when the doorbell finally rang, only Dylan and Noah stood before us on the porch. Aside from them telling us that everything had been taken care of with the police and that we no longer had anything to worry about, we didn't talk much more about the horrific experience throughout that evening. In fact, no one spoke much more that evening at all. After dinner and a movie, we went our separate ways. As the guys headed home, Blake and I headed upstairs and got ready for bed. As I snuggled against him, he pulled me in close. I'm never letting you go, even if it kills me, he whispered. I whacked him. That's not funny. He gave a little chuckle. You know what I mean. I love you more than life. I know. I love you too, I replied with a content sigh. Noah and Dylan stayed in California for the months following, however, eventually returned home to Vermont. Ben still lives next door, where he and Blake still work. As for Blake and myself, we ended up getting married a little bit more than a year later, in the fall. Refusing to let my favorite season be tainted by bad memories, Blake had been adamant about making new good ones of our own, and that we did. We now have our very own bundle of joy on the way. Her name will be Autumn. Things are a little chaotic presently as we prepare for her arrival, but in a good way. In fact, everything is better than I could have possibly imagined. However, that's not to say that it wasn't a long road getting here. The guys and I had attended therapy for months following the incident. However, Blake and I had stuck with it on our own until just before the wedding, when we were finally able to process and deal with the memories that plagued us. As for myself, due to my passion for writing, my therapist recommended that I channel my memories and accompanying emotions into a book. So that's what I've done. My name is Shelley, and this is my story. Alright guys, woo! What a ride, right? That is a wrap on Once Upon a Fall. I hope you loved it. That was a lot of twists and turns, a lot of up and down, a lot of drama, a lot of love. I definitely loved this book. It was great. So happy fall. Next up, actually, we're going to be diving into one that's going to be a first-time read here on the Midnight Readers podcast. And it's going to be the first time anyone, anywhere, has heard this book. It is actually being released at the beginning of October. So you guys get the first speak. I hope you enjoy it. See you next time.